So the tires got scratched. How did that happen?
By the way I remember it, I think I was backing out and Eric directed me wrong into a curb.
That's not how Eric tells the story.
We're always competing, so I had to outdo him in the wheel nick category.
I cared about the exterior because, you're driving it. We go to these cruise nights, everybody bets and races, and you don't want to be this crappy old car sitting there. So on the Mustang, we're focusing on basically how it looks. Paint the front rear bumpers. It's got some damage, very minor, but we're going to paint them because the red is not the same all the way across on the deck. I think we're going to put a matte black wrap on it. Also, we're going to focus on like headlights, the fog lights, make it look good, make it look like a new car up front.
I think the focus on the exterior of the Mustang is to give it good instant curb appeal. Anything on the outside that isn't visually pleasing, we want to do what we can within a certain constraint and without, overspending. We want to make it look really good. There is some damage both on the front and rear bumpers, more than what we could probably handle ourselves, in that it's actual bodywork or replacing the skins on both. We're definitely not qualified painters by any means and really don't have the facilities for a job that big, but we can probably get the pre-prep done.
There's a place in Houston that actually would paint the bumper to your color code on your car and ship bumpers complete. With shipping, they may be scratched, and then we're still back in the same boat. Or we were looking at a mobile painter that would come out here to the shop. The benefits for a mobile mechanic, I think, is the car doesn't leave here. We don't have to wait for bumpers.
For a few $100s per bumper, we'll actually go on, do that basic body work, do the primer and paint and clear coat. I respect bodymen and painters immensely. The process, if you do an entire vehicle especially, isn't sometimes even figured in hours. Sometimes it's days, weeks, and months. Doing something in a bumper, if you bring it to a body shop, could be, a week, 2-week job, whether they're actually working on it or waiting to work on it. Sometimes it's just not an option. Sometimes you got to get something done quicker.
Painting a car, back in the day, you could do a few coats on it. There was no clear, there was no color sanding, anything like that. Nowadays, you've got perfect primer, perfect paint, a clear coat, everything's got to be color sounded, so you could have hundreds of man hours into a paint job, and that's why they're more expensive nowadays.
Jacob was pretty cool. That guy came out with no issues, no hassles. You can just see in somebody's eyes when they come out and you describe what you want done. You can see they're more intent on getting started with the job and getting through it, not an ounce of worry in their eyes. You feel really confident that they're going to do a good job. When we bought it, there was one minor nick on the passenger rear. Now there's one small nick on the passenger rear and one nice long scuff on the driver rear.
I wonder how that happened, Tom. When I back up the Mustang, I put the mirrors down so I can see both sides of the ramp coming in and out of the building. So right before Tom backed it out, I put the mirrors down.
Yeah, the side mirrors were angled quite low actually, and I was thinking about that as I was backing up.
And he caught the left rear wheel on the edge of the ramp.
I guess I just misjudged. The wheels are still in really good shape. It is just on the outer face. We can sand it down a bit, smooth it out, and it should just be able to take a little bit of touch-up paint and it'll look fine.
I've used touch-up pins and they come out pretty good. Luckily, the wheels are just a gloss black, so it's going to be easy on these wheels.
It's really common. A lot of people will do it. It's the quickest and easiest way to bring up the appearance without having to go through full body shop or repaint. It doesn't really fill the void. It's more of a pigment to cover when the scratch goes through the paint down into either the primer or the metal, but at a reasonable distance, it gives back a lot of the visual appearance and doesn't distract as badly from the eye.
The other thing we're working on is going to be the headlights and the fog lights. And if you look, both of them are very foggy. There is some kits you can buy that you can buff out the lights, but I think a better option is to just replace them. I don't think you get the same clarity you would by just putting brand new lights in it. Also, when you're buffing out headlights, you'll spend a lot of time doing it. With replacing it, it may be 10 minutes of light and that's it.
I think Eric thinks that money grows on trees and that money can solve everything. Sometimes just some good old elbow grease and polishing and rubbing compound and a little bit of wax can do almost as good. You know, it's the time versus money thing. If you have more money than time, spend it. If you have more time than money, then use it. I try to use that as a balance in all decisions, whether it's personal or professional.
When we're doing the headlights, we're going to have to remove the front bumper. We're also going to be able to do the side marker lamps and the directionals at the same time. The reason these headlights get foggy is, especially here in Texas, we get a lot of moisture, we get a lot of rain. Plus you get the sunlight. They get like a film over the top of it. And these buffing kits get rid of that film. But as cheap as these headlights are nowadays, you can just swap them out for almost the same amount of money as buying a kit and a lot less time.
The added benefit of the lights, getting them changed and cleared out, whether it be by hand smoothing them and polishing them or by just ordering, you know, some half decent replacements online or locally, is that you don't have the light scatter and get filtered out through these hazy lenses, so you end up with more light landing on the road and going through the air in front of you than stopping at the hazy lens.
Well, the car, when we bought it, originally had hail damage. Just the other day, I drove it home. Texas had a pretty good hailstorm. My daughter and I were out there with moving blankets, throwing them on the hood, on the roof, on the windows. But I think we got a little bit of damage. Either way, Tom's blaming me.
Did Eric admit to the added hail damage?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, there was a few pings on the roof. They weren't enough to sway us away from it. I knew that we could fairly cost effectively fix those, but there's a chance that if it had as much damage as after the last hailstorm, may not have bought it. I'm sure Eric's going to get proficient with the dent puller at some point.
In the past, I've never used a dent kit before, so this should be kind of interesting.
I'll take care of the original hail damage, and you take care of the new hail damage.
Okay. In reality, though, I'm not looking forward to this dent kit. It's something that's meticulous, and Tom's better at that.
As I recall, Eric didn't touch any component of that dent kit. Dent kit has worked probably better than I thought it was going to. We researched a bit before. There are a lot of videos online. You can learn a lot on YouTube. But with this kit, surprisingly, it's done kind of what you would hope that it would do. With a little more work with it, I think probably pretty darn good. It's definitely a time-consuming process. As long as you have a nice long period, some good music playing in the background, and good lighting, then I think it should equal success.
He has a lot more patience than I do, so he can take those longer projects, even though I think he spends too much time on it.
By the time I have a chance to get working with something with my hands, I can tune out the rest of the world and just focus on whatever's at hand, and it allows you to relax. Some people do yoga and some people pop out dings in cars. We'd have some options that we could actually make it maybe even look a little sportier, doing, you know, a vinyl wrap or something over the hood and the roof. A vinyl wrap is kind of what it sounds like, where you're basically taking lengths of adhesive-backed vinyl and sticking it over the existing paint.
With the hood and the roof, there's nice sharp corners, so it'll give a contrast. You know, red fenders, black hood, red doors, black roof.
You can do things with vinyl that are either extremely hard to duplicate with paint, or some things are absolutely impossible to do with paint. The other nice thing with the wrap is that the color is really consistent, whereas painting, a lot of times you have to paint an entire vehicle in one shot. This is the first time I've done vinyl, and doing vinyl on this car, I'm equating to learning to ride a bicycle. If it was a pro job, this would probably be a D-. The main thing on this was that we knew that there was some color issues between the hood and the roof and pillars and the doors and the side. You know, it had had some hail damage before that we were able to mostly correct. It's another one of those things, unless you're a pro doing it every day, you're never going to get it perfect. And it's not for a lack of trying, it's just there's things that you need to learn along the way to get things perfect. You couldn't really see the dents, but you could see warbles in the reflections. Knowing how matte material works, put a halfway decent matte looking material vinyl on the hood and the roof, mask off any of the little imperfections, which it has for the most part. It looks much better. If it was me keeping this car for myself, I'd probably end up either getting the car repainted, getting some minor work, but on an investment like this, where, you know, you're trying to flip it, at least recoup what you got into it, it doesn't make sense to put a $4,000 or $5,000 paint job, because you're not going to increase the value of that car by $4,000 or $5,000. That's a wrap.
Yeah, not even close, Tom.
The biggest improvement visually exterior ended up being the headlight lenses. After a few years, they'll get dull, they get hazy. It just makes the vehicle look so old at a glance. It looks unloved, it looks unkept. Change just the headlights and it looks 10 years newer.
I'm definitely glad I don't have to stare at that scuffed up tire and or listen to Tom still try to blame it on me.
That's the way I remember it.
Like Tom said, that's a wrap on the Mustang's exterior. We wrestled with the vinyl, brought the hammer down on dents, but in the end, we overextended the goal budget by $5. Even after deducting $5, there's still over $500 rolling forward overall. Tom and Eric have high hopes to increase that performance budget coming into the next episode as they step into their wheelhouse, mechanical tune-up and drivetrain repair. Does following our mini-series modifying and comparing the last 3 generations of the GT interest you? Subscribe and click that bell to get reminders for our bi-weekly episode releases. Did you see something you liked or learn something new? Hit that thumbs up to tell us we're doing a great job.